Hello and welcome to another episode of Detox for Vibrant Health. Today I have Nicola Lucie on our show, and Nicola is a Shamanic Shadow Work Practitioner. She's the creator of the one-on-one shadow walking process and the founder of the Feminine Principle. Coined a Soul Doula, Nicola supports women to redefine the relationship they have with themselves, others, and Mother Earth so that they can live an empowered and embodied lives full of purpose, possibility, and wonder. Thank you so much for being here today, Nicola.
Hi, Jessica. Thank you so much for inviting me. It's a real pleasure.
Well, I'm so excited to have you on today. And, just to let listeners know, the topic of today's conversation will be about detoxing emotional blockages and understanding what they have to teach us about unresolved wounding and trauma and conditioning that we've been exposed to. And so this is such an important topic to cover, such an important piece in the whole healing process to create vibrant health. And so I'd love to just start out. I'm sure people are really interested in how you became a shamanic practitioner and a shadow work specialist. So if you wouldn't mind sharing with us a little bit about your journey, and I know it starts pretty young, so go ahead and start as early as you'd like to. I'm really interested in hearing the story.
Okay, so I was born in the UK. I was born to a 19-year-old young woman. And a couple of years after I was born, she decided that she would give me up for adoption. And anyway, so to save me from a life in care, my maternal grandmother stepped in and she got legal custody of me. And so what was really fascinating was growing up, I never kind of fit in. I was different. So you can see me, I am literally the black sheep of my family. Every single person in my family is white as the driven snow. And so I never fit in. I never fit in school. I never fit in my environment. I was the only dark girl in my community, in my family. Mm-hmm. And so growing up, trying to find out who I was. And, as I hit menarche, at the age of 13, it was one of those moments for me where the driving question was, who am I as a woman? Who am I as a woman and as a sexual being? And who am I between these two women of mother? One who sacrificed her life to nurture me into being, while another one chose a different path. And so finding my way between those two women and navigating, that whole kind of rising sexual energy that we all have from that age. Well, not that we all have it, but it's there, it's present within us and through our bleed, really started to become pronounced. And so that has been my quest. And that took me through a degree in psychology, which did not satisfy my journey at all, because psychology taught at university kind of was missing the whole feminine, was non-existent. And this was exactly what I was searching for. So I left there more disillusioned than ever, even though I took women's studies, which was even quite interesting because it was all focused on, the feminist movement of the 1980s and let's burn our bras and let's be like men. And so I left very disillusioned. So then I continued my own path. And then, finding out as I got older about being a mother, and I didn't want to be a mother, yet I conceived. And so I went down the path of, abortion, which was really, really challenging. But I knew that I didn't want to be a mother. But it still created this conflict in me, because as women, we are conditioned to be the mother. And so it actually manifested that after an abortion, I started to suffer really greatly. And I developed something called PMDD, which is premenstrual dysphoric disorder. And it's practically where you lose your mind for 14 days of your cycle. You really walk that thin line between sanity and insanity, to the point where you just have no control over your emotional, mental state. And it's all connected with your cycle. And obviously, you know, my only options when I sought professional help was to have HRT and to go on antidepressants to suppress. And I knew that I just didn't want to go down that route. I thought there has to be another way. This is my body. There's something happening in my body that is calling for my attention. And so I decided to get in touch with my body, to listen to my body. And I just simply did that by tracking every single day exactly how I was feeling. And then I could then start to see the patterns in my cycle. So when it would start to peak, when it would subside, and then the emotions which were most dominant, you know, which was depression, anxiety, suicidal thoughts, rage. You know, these were the most dominant emotions which I was having to fight with, basically. And so from there, I was then able to identify natural medicines to help me ease those, because, you know, I needed to ease them so I could come back into some sort of balance and control over what was happening to me. And so going through that process really helped me to start to understand myself as a woman, you know, and that I was so much more than what I'd been conditioned to believe, and that I was these emotions. These emotions were surfacing for a reason. And anyway, it wasn't until a few years later, after I'd obviously, you know, I'd created balance from that and I was able to continue and move on with my life, that my mom, my grandmother, she got sick and she developed Alzheimer's. And so I had to go back to the place where I was born. And what was really interesting was that this was a major life transition for me. And so it coincided with me meeting this amazing guy from the States, Ben Stewart. And, you know, he'd done a few videos on YouTube and, you know, this alternative kind of thinking way. Anyway, we invited him over to do a talk. And anyway, to cut a long story short, he introduced me to this amazing shamanic practitioner in the UK, suggested that I get in touch with her. And I did. And from that moment, everything that we talked about just completely and utterly resonated with who I was and what I was facing and what I was going through. And so I did a Google search. Good old Google, and everything just kind of fell into place. And I found the place that I was going to study down in Wimborne in the UK, and I signed up straight away. It was my calling. I knew it, and it was all to do with soul retrieval. You know, so my first training was soul retrieval, and I went simply for selfish reasons, because I went to do this training. Because I was a web designer, you know, I was was working in an industry. I was a UX designer from a business school, and so I went to do this training because something about soul retrieval was just really calling to me, and I knew that I was deeply wounded from the abandonment and my whole relationship with motherhood, and I needed to find something that I was missing. You know, I've never, not knowing who I was really crucial. Who am I? Something is missing inside of me and I don't know what it is.
Can I pause just 1 second? I just want to make sure that, you know, the term soul retrieval might be really new to some of the listeners, and you're hinting at what this is. Can you just quickly define what that is for people so that they get a little bit of a better sense for what you're talking about?
Yes, of course.
Thank you.
And so soul retrieval is basically a shamanic healing method where we, as a shamanic practitioner, we journey with our guides and our teachers and our allies beyond the veil. So we alter our state of consciousness to go and look for the missing or the fragmented aspects of a person's soul, which had been lost as a result of wounding, trauma, or conditioning that we've been exposed to. And so this is the practice of soul retrieval. And so I went for my own personal needs. But then it's a workshop, it's a training. So when it came to me actually doing the soul retrieval for somebody else, that was when something opened inside of me that I never, ever would have expected. Because in that moment, I tapped into, wait a second, this is a huge responsibility. You are being given permission to enter into and work with such a delicate piece of wounding or trauma and an essence of somebody's soul. And this is like the highest piece of, like, the most holiest work that anybody could be given. And in that moment, I was shocked because I was like, I can't do this. That's too much of a responsibility. But it had opened inside of me, and I knew that there was no turning back because something had called me there. And so I did. I stepped into it, and it was the most powerful, healing, and awakening moment of my entire life. And I just knew that I'd found my calling. And so that was the beginning. And the rest is kind of history, but it's kind of evolved from there, because that's when I came into my own work, that all my training. So I went to do a very intensive training then, but all of my training, besides working on the level of soul, was very much understanding the fragmented soul, and also understanding the deep workings of the psyche, which is everything that I wanted to learn in university. And it wasn't just what we see on the surface, it was everything that was hidden in the unconscious. And the more deeper that I went into it, the more I explored the human being and, our emotions, the intelligence of our body, and how our unconscious is literally manifesting our day-to-day reality. And if we don't engage with the human body, and we don't have a relationship with it, then we will keep reacting to our external circumstances and recreating the same patterns over and over again. And so this was an area that just opened to me, and I found that I was just just amazingly in my element in it. So I was given the gift to nurture it. And this is now what I do with women.
That is amazing. That's an amazing story. Such a journey of exploration and revealing parts of yourself, and to be able to come to this place where everything started to come together finally for you, where, oh wow, this is really powerful, and oh my gosh, I'm being called to do this work with other women. And I love that you kept seeking until you found, what it was that you really wanted to do with your work. And the work itself is really powerful too. And this really leads into our topic for today, because I know that just in my own work that many of my clients have physical ailments, physical um, challenges, and emotional challenges that they're going through. And but that's not necessarily something that they come to me for. They might come to me thinking, oh, I just want to be healthier, I want to lose some weight, I want to feel younger, and I do feel icky, and I'm not sure why. But when you start to dig in, when I started to dig into many of their backgrounds, asking all these questions from when they were born up until today, start to see things pop up, the unresolved trauma, the stress, the stories, those negative stories or negative beliefs that they tell themselves. And you mentioned the unconscious mind, and I know from some of my learnings that we kind of construct this unconscious mind up until I think we're almost like 26 years old before we fully just come into our, now we're totally present, right? And all along the way, these stories are being embedded in our unconscious mind. It might be something that somebody tells us, it might be something that we observe, and then they become a part of this sort of program that we're running on, sort of like this background, like the hardware or something that we're running on, and we might not even be aware of it. And yeah, so this is all really just super interesting and fascinating, and why you're on today. You know, we're talking about detoxing these negative emotions, these negative beliefs, really understanding these traumas in our lives and how they impact our physical bodies today and our emotional state today. So, with that, I'd really love to hear you talk a little bit more about how you see this, emotional trauma manifesting in physical ways. And then I'd like to take us through how someone could start to resolve some of that trauma to start to improve their physical health and emotional health.
Well, yes, because the emotions, they are what make us human. We are continuously reacting and responding to our world, our external world, through the emotions. And if we think about emotion, it's just energy in motion. And so we have this whole range of emotions that we can feel in literally just 1 minute. We can go from happiness to sadness to anxiety to panic to fear. We can experience it all in one go. And what the most fascinating thing is that obviously from a very young age, well, really from the moment that we are born, we are fully dependent on other people, nurturing us, feeding us, caring for us, giving us a home, safety, stability, security. And so we are completely dependable, and therefore we are being molded by the people around us. And not even from the moment that we're born, but going right back even to being in the womb, because we are sensory beings. So we are feeling the emotions of the mother. We feel what she is feeling, even though we have no idea how to explain those feelings or, interpret them intellectually. And even now, we can get to our 40s and still not be able to explain how we're feeling emotionally or intellectually. So, we have been experiencing emotion right back from that point. However, nobody has actually shown us or taught us how to work with these emotions. Because as we've started to grow in our infancy, and these emotions have arisen because basically all we've needed is our needs to be met. We're going through that developmental stage, so we don't know what our needs are. We just know that we need this and we need it now. We don't know any other reason behind it. But then we are told, no, yes, but later, and you've got to do this and you've got to do that. So we are then being conditioned on how to feel. And so when we go through, having a tantrum for some reason, we all know those tantrums of the terrible twos and the terrible threes. That's simply because we are trying to express something that we have no idea how to express because it's coming through the body. But the reaction of those around us has made it unacceptable or undesirable. And if we behave like that, then we will not be loved and we will not be cared for, and that we have our sense of safety, security, and stability threatened. So suddenly everything that we are, all of these emotions become trapped. They get suppressed and they go down into the body. So we have this amazing body which stores every single emotion and memory, every trauma, every wound, every moment of joy, every moment of pleasure and happiness. It's all stored in the body. But if it's been repressed, that needs to come out. It's energy which needs motion. It needs to be expressed. If it's not expressed, it stays stored in the body. So even as we start to grow up, how many times do we eat our own anger? How many times do we eat the fear? And we keep burying it over and over and over again. And so what happens is that the body needs us to listen. It's calling out, saying, hey, this is triggering you now in your outside world. Look, this same relationship, different guy or different person, different and a different person, same energy over and over again. We're repeating the same patterns because something hidden in our unconscious, which is relating back to the original wounding or trauma. But we don't listen. We don't know how to listen to these things. And so the body is asking for our attention, but we are ignoring it. So the only way that the body can get our attention is to be sick, because then it has our full attention. But then, as we know in the Western world, you know that, oh, if we get sick, what do? We have been conditioned to seek help from the outside. So, you know, we've been conditioned to go into that kind of Western medicine. You know, go to the doctors, go for the operation, go and stick all these pills down our throat without even knowing what's in them. But we'll just do it because somebody told us to do it, because that's what we've been told to do. But what everything does is it keeps the core, the root, still repressed within us. And so obviously we might heal that part of the body which was sick, but it will just pop up somewhere else. And it will pop up somewhere else until we actually decide to go in to the root, you know, with our psychic shovel and being in the body and experiencing the emotions to get there. And to actually heal it and to feel it and to engage with it, so that then we can become whole with it, you know, so we can integrate it, so it no longer destroys us and eats in on itself. You know, we come back into right relationship with it because we've actually gone in and gone to its root, you know, which is the wounding or the trauma, the conditioning that created it in the first place.
Wow, that is so powerful. And you touched on something that is um, something that I am really cognizant about, something that I feel very strongly about too. And that is, you mentioned how when you get sick, the first response for someone is go seek outside help. And not that that could be, you know, a terrible thing, but that really hands off the power of our body and our health to someone else who doesn't know us.
Exactly.
Right? They don't know our past, they don't know our history, they don't know every single thing that we're feeling. And in conventional, or I'll say allopathic medicine, you might spend 10 minutes with a doctor, and that's not enough time to even describe all the stuff going on. You know, they take some vitals, they say, what's your worst symptom? Here is a pill to sort of band-aid it over. But, you know, there's nothing, that's it.
That's it. And but this is how we've been conditioned. You know, we have been conditioned to give our power away. And in the matter of health, you know, it's fundamental that somebody else can fix us. You know, so this is kind of, if, you know, who want to go into those wider spectrums without going too deep into it, but it's what's fed the pharmaceutical industry. And you know why it's so big in today's world is because we keep giving them our power. And so therefore, you know, we have to learn how to take back control of our own power and our own bodies, because nobody knows our body like ourselves. There's only us that knows our body. And therefore, when we learn to have a relationship with the body, we can learn so much more. And then that's when we learn how to listen, and we can say, okay, well, my body does need to talk to somebody about diet, about exercise, you know, maybe about the psyche, or going down that route. And then we bring into it the soul, because we are a soul having a human journey, and this is home to our soul. Our body is the home to our soul. So, you know, there's so many different layers to being human, that treating just one aspect without looking at the whole, you know, is disempowering. And so this is, you know, where we are in today's world, helping to change that movement to bring people back home into their bodies and listen.
Yeah, you make such an excellent point. You know, first, taking back our power, And we are our strongest advocate for our own health and well-being, but also recognizing that there are potential team members that could help us get our health back, right? We're all a part of a
Exactly.
team. And listening to, it does make me think that even just, speaking with you, it reminds me that when we take back our power, we should also realize that we can say yes to a practitioner or say no to a practitioner. And that's okay. Yes, they
Yes.
might be offended, but if they don't connect well with us, if they don't make us feel like we're supported in our journey towards health, then it's okay to say no and say, I don't think that we're a good fit.
Exactly. And it's interesting because yes and no are two of the most powerful words in our dictionary, in our vocabulary, but yet we don't know how to use them. And this also goes back to the emotional body, because when we've said yes in the past, we've meant no. And when we've said no in the past, we've meant yes. And so we all know this scenario, how it goes, and we regret it. So we've done so many things based on that wrong yes and that wrong no, that when it comes to stepping into our power with other people, with other practitioners to say, look, let's form a partnership, we still sometimes come to it from that fear of, oh, I can't say no, therefore I have to. And
Mm,
so again, we're going back into that disempowerment. But with practitioners, and this is where we all come in, it's about having that level of responsibility of asking the client, putting the power back into their hands and asking them, look, if you think or you feel that you really want to work with me, then please, I invite you to go back and sit with yourself, for a day and really feel into it. And if it's a yes, come back. And if it's a no, it's absolutely fine. I'm not the right person. And so I think as practitioners, it's about also understanding that we have to keep giving the power back to the clients, because that's where it all starts from. If we're going to help the human race, or even just our clients in whichever way, to step back into having a relationship with themselves, then that's where it starts from, is empowering them to be able to make those decisions and say yes when they mean yes, and no when they mean no.
exactly. I love that. I'm just underlining this, underlining it, empowering our clients, empowering ourselves to really be able to make a decision, right?
Yes, to
That
make a decision, because we have to make decisions.
yes.
But we don't know how to make decisions, because in the past, when we've made decisions, they've come with kind of consequences. Or when we've made the right decision, we feel it. We feel it in our energy system that, wow, I've made the right decision, because life changes, and it changes for the better. Doesn't mean to say that it's all love and roses, but we know that we've made the right decision. But then there's other times when we know that we've made an absolutely terrible decision, and we have to live by that. And when we do make the wrong decisions, we feel them emotionally, and so those emotions again get trapped. And so this is like with my own story with motherhood,
Mm.
not being able to say yes to motherhood because of my own background. And so going through the abortion route, feeling that energy. And when it did come time to want to say yes, I still could not say yes. And so I went through with it, and it just destroyed me, absolutely destroyed me. And that's when my body reacted and said, now we're going to get sick, because you cannot keep going down this route, making this wrong decision, because you are sacrificing yourself over and over and over again. And that's when I went back into it, to find out, why am I saying no when I want to say yes? how can I change this? And what is also at the root of it? Because obviously the abandonment was at the root of that decision. But that abandonment, what I experienced, and all of the emotions that go through that, they're with you, you know, they're ingrained in the body. So working through all those emotions to bring balance back into the body, it takes time. It's delicate work. It's not like going into surgery where we can just rip it out and put a plaster on it. You know, working with emotions is so delicate, and we forget that, you know, we are very delicate and emotional beings. We are women. We go through this amazing process every month called menstruation. So we are chaos and we are emotional. But learning how to work with those emotions and what's buried beneath those emotions that we don't want to feel, because they are a part of us. And so, again, coming back into relationship with them, stepping in and doing that delicate work with the self. I mean, that's a beautiful gift any woman can give to herself.
I love that. And you know, when we introduced today's topic of detoxing, you know, negative emotions, detoxing, limiting beliefs, and things of that sort, it sounds very, you know, it sounds very kind of abrupt, and it sounds very, very strong, very harsh, very, you know, it's like, oh, we're going to do this right away, right? And but you've brought up a really important point. You know, this process doesn't have to be like that, and you know, and I know it takes time. You know, I myself worked very hard for a year to get rid of some of these negative beliefs, negative emotions, limiting beliefs, and stories that I kept telling myself. And you know, I still have work to do, but it can be a long process. But you know, there's some things that I think you know, we could start to shift, some important shifts that we can make that can yield us some results to get us in a better place so that we could do this deeper work. It kind of like how you were saying that you had found some natural remedies to help you get enough balance in your life so that you weren't having such crazy, you know, emotional feelings, ups and downs, so that you could start to do the important work, right? So, you know, because I really want people to walk away with this understanding, yes, you know, your physical ailments, they're very likely tied to some emotional piece, some negative beliefs or trauma or something like that. What are some things that people can do? What are your top tips for people to start on right away so that they could get to that place where they could start to do that deeper work?
So, for example, you know, stepping into a relationship with our emotions can in itself be very, very triggering, because we all know how it feels to experience that moment of rage or that fury or the jealousy or even that deep, dark depression or grief or sadness. But then we also know how to experience those moments of happiness, even though when those happy moments come, we think, oh yeah, things are a bit too good here. What's going to happen on the other side? So we're constantly living on that stress hormone going around us. You know, so one of the ways in which I always work with my own clients, you know, it's about just gently learning how to listen. And so, for example, you know, when we get triggered, you know, triggers is one of the most important tools in my eyes of shadow work, for example. So, you know, getting back into working with the emotions. But, you know, triggers are coming to us just to show us what is being suppressed in the body. And so when we get triggered, instead of, you know, reacting in the usual way that we react, it's just recognizing in that moment, oh, wait a second, I've been triggered. And just making a break in that and saying, oh, wait a second, I've been triggered. And then just exploring, even if it's just for a few seconds, okay, what was being triggered in me? And we know straight away what was being triggered. Fear. I feel panic. I feel a lot of anxiety or depression. Or, I was going to get really angry, because I'm sick of doing all this for myself, or whatever it is. And then just by bringing the awareness to it, we are already starting to listen and build a relationship once again with the emotional body. And then obviously you can step into it a little bit deeper, because that person that triggered you, or that aspect of your work that triggered you, is not the first time that you've actually felt that trigger or that reaction. And so when we then start to go back and we can start to then see all the other instances in our life and our relationships where that exact same energy manifested, we can actually take it back to a point in our early childhood, that was maybe triggering our lack of self-worth. So, we're digging into, we're gently revealing the layers hidden in our darkness. So when I talk about the darkness, it's about what's hidden inside. It's not about the darkness and the big scary monster in the cupboard, but just finding out, okay, where does this fear lead me to? Where does this panic lead me to in my past? So gently we can get there, but only by listening and paying attention. And because the body is always communicating to us, so another one is just listening to the body. When we get sick, even if we have a headache, or even if we have period pains, or whatever ailment, whether it's an ailment that's coming and going, or whether that's something deeply serious like a disease or a disorder or something, but whatever it is, asking the body. We forget to ask the most simple thing. We want to ask everybody else, okay, why have I got this? What can I do about this? But we forget to ask the body, like, okay, why have I got this headache? Please, can you show me? Okay, what's in this headache? And we can, if we listen, we can actually feel what's in the headache or in the period pain, or because there's always some emotion beneath it. And so asking the body, okay, why am I suffering like this? Why do I feel this? So gradually we start to just gently build that relationship. And what I've experienced over these years of working with women in practice, because understanding like the kind of the soul retrieval and the that it's not really, well, psychoanalysis, but I'm not a psychoanalyst, but learning, holding space for women to actually have these conversations from a place of the body, allowing the body to talk rather than the mind. The mind can come up with so much drama, it's unbelievable. And the drama creates more emotion and more chaos. And it's like, let's just quieten the mind for a moment and let's allow the body to talk. Where does the body want to take us? And the exploration that the woman does is so powerful, because we are just the guides for them, to hold the space for their body to tell the story of what it needs to work on, or what needs to be revealed, or what needs to be healed and integrated. Because the body always knows. Always. But we don't give it any credit. We just ignore it. We think, oh my God, I'm just so sick of my body, and my body's doing this and my body's doing that. But wow, what an organism. This vibrant, intelligent organism. Why wouldn't we want to listen to it?
Oh, yeah, I think you hit a nail on the head right there. We talked earlier about how we've given our power away for our own health to someone else who doesn't know our body. And it's kind of like we've been treating and this is so common, and we're just conditioned for this, right? It's kind of like we imagine our bodies as just needing a tune-up. So we go to the doctors, like taking a car to get a tune-up. I'll just go in for my yearly exam to kind of get a bit of a tune-up. It's like our body is for somebody else to listen to, right? And maintain. And what you've really hit on here is that no, our body is immensely intelligent. It has so much to tell us, and it's doing its darndest to tell us things. And we just don't listen, and we keep not listening. It's like, oh, the migraines, and then autoimmune conditions, and then cancer, and then we're still not listening. And yeah, it's if the only thing that people took away today was to listen to their body very carefully, and then to ask the question, what are you trying to tell me? What is this trying to tell me?
Yeah.
And we are such intuitive beings, and and we know more than we give ourselves credit for.
Oh, yes, we are powerful beyond belief. I mean, we are super sensitive. You know, part of our femininity is being sensitive, receptive, intuitive, but yet we only use a very small percentage of those gifts. And so the more that we learn to listen, we can then hear. And so, just a quick story I'd like to share with you. But I think that it's just so relevant. Like last year, for example, I developed sciatica, sciatic nerve. It was pushing and totally trapped. I was completely and utterly disabled. I could not move. I could not walk. I could not do anything. And the first reaction, because I was in so much pain, was to reach for the painkillers just to get myself some stability. But after 24 hours of taking these painkillers, which were not doing a damn thing, and I just thought, okay, I'm just going to have to go into it. And so I had to go into the trapped nerve, so I managed to get myself there slowly, gently, painstakingly, with my attention and my awareness, to get into the trapped nerve. And it took me days to find out what was trapped there. And what I discovered was a whole lifetime of resentment towards my father, who had walked out on us. And that was actually then feeding into not being supported by the masculine, going right back through the ancestral line. And I've been carrying all of this resentment in my sciatic nerve. And so the more that I was able to understand this and work with it and listen to the story behind it and cry, because again, the grief and the sadness and the anger were all mixed up in that resentment. But giving myself permission to go through that story, I was able to clear the sciatica within 3 weeks, rather than it being an extended illness, simply because I chose to listen to my body, to have a relationship with it. And then obviously, go to the acupuncturist after to just help me clear the rest of the energy. But just listening, because it's there. It has the information that we need. And so, yes, listen, hear what it's saying, not just listen and say, oh yeah, it's that, and then do nothing about it. Because then we have to engage and we have to listen to hear what the next steps are to help us find that resolution. And so, yes, whether that's on our own or with a practitioner, but we know our way forward because we've listened. And we've done it empowered rather than disempowered.
Oh, that is such an excellent story. And I've heard similar stories, and read about similar stories, and just this is just illustrating and emphasizing the fact that we have so much more power than we give ourselves credit for.
Yes.
And our body is incredibly, incredibly intelligent. And our mind is amazing. And when we really focus in on something, when we really listen, we could do amazing things to help our bodies heal. And I love that you were able to dig in and find, what is this pain that you're experiencing? What is that related to? And to be able to identify this trauma. And it's amazing how often we could bury things like that, or just deny it, or say, oh yeah, that happened, and just sort of shove it away. And your mind might say, Oh yeah, it's all fine. Really, I'm totally fine with it because I know I should be fine, right? But
Exactly.
maybe you just haven't worked through some portion of it as well. So it's worth an exploration, especially if you're starting to pick up on that while you're trying to focus in on why is this going on for me.
Exactly. And, our wounds and our traumas, so what I may call a trauma might not be, you might think, well, that's not a trauma. So we can't even compare other people's, our traumas to other people's, because we all interpret what happens to us in very, very different ways. But nonetheless, we have been traumatized and we have been wounded. And what starts to be revealed is that the trauma or the wounding has many different layers. So even going back to my own core wound of abandonment, I've gone through so many different layers of that. And, I don't even think that it will be completely resolved. I don't even know if it can be completely resolved, because there's still always more to discover. But what actually happens at a certain point when you've got to one of the roots of it is that it becomes then a curiosity. It's like, oh, that's popped up again. I wonder why. So then we actually find the courage to go in, because it comes from that place of, oh, what more can I find? Okay, yes, I am going to have to probably go through a bit more grief and, release more anger. But again, we are helping the body to release that energy, because underneath all of that energy is our power, is our personal power, are our gifts and our strengths. And therefore, the more that we do work with the body to release these repressed emotions, the more that we discover more about ourselves. And this is absolutely priceless, because that's who we are. All of our light and our ability to love and to enjoy life with pleasure and passion and everything, it's there. It's just buried beneath everything that sat on top of it. And when we get a taste of that, that becomes the real addiction, because it's like, oh my goodness, I want more. I want to taste more of who I am. And so we can then go through those repressed emotions a bit more easier. We know that they're coming. I like to call it the honey and the sting. So we will go through some of the sting, but then we will also be rewarded with the most beautiful honey on the other side. And that is life. It's the balance between the honey and the sting. We can't have one and not the other. And so this is the work, and it's all here in the body.
Well, that is amazing, and I love that. I love what you talked about with identifying triggers, just noticing triggers, awareness, and listening. Uh, Such powerful tools that we don't use often enough. And I'd really love to make sure people know how they could work with you, how to reach out to you, how to get more information about the work that you do. So if you could share a little bit about, how do you work with people? How can they find you and work with you?
And so I am the founder of the Feminine Principle, so thefeminineprinciple.com. And on there, you can find access to one-to-one work. And also, I have a community called The Dark Womb. It's where we, as women, we gather and we explore everything that is hidden in our psyche and our soul. But in regards to the one-to-one work, is basically the one-to-one shadow walking process. And I really love this work, and it's something that we've touched upon in this conversation. But I'm not the healer. And I always have to kind of stress this. I'm not going to be the healer, and I'm not going to be the one that mollycoddles you and tells you everything's going to be all right and everything else. This is just me holding space for women, and I do predominantly work with women, but holding space for them to get to know their body and allow their body to do the talking. And so it's really fascinating, because it's not me going in and healing their fragmented soul. It's them going in and discovering where their soul has become fragmented. And when they experience that and they have done it themselves, okay, I'm just holding space, but they've done it, they've been guided to wherever it is they need to go by their own bodies. That is just something so beautiful, and it's just it's always a gift and an honor for me to be able to witness. And so yes, that is the shadow walking process, and yes, it's an honor to hold that space for women to know themselves, to come into their own bodies. And that's fascinating. So yes, that's how you can find me, that's how you can work with me, and that's also how you can join in with other women and explore the magic and the mystery that is hidden in the feminine principle that is us, you know, in the dark womb. We all come from the womb. And so everything that we are also exists in the womb. So it's a great exploration. I love it. I really do love it.
I can tell you really have a very deep, deep passion for the work that you do. And I'm so excited that you decided to come on the show with me today. And I'll be sure to add in the show notes the ways that they could reach out to you. I'll have links to your website and to the How to Work With You page, and any other ways that they could connect with you. I'm so excited to share this with everyone. And so thank you so much, Nicola, for joining me on today's podcast.
Oh, thank you so much, Jessica. It really has been a pleasure, and such a beautiful energy of yours to connect with. So thank you. Thank you for having me.